My good people, welcome back to Strong Bear Fitness. And today we're looking at a short run through of me performing a maximal effort bench press attempt after completing my conditioning and training program and mesocycle. Afterwards, I tell you how you can create your own training program based off of your goals, and I'll give you an example of my next training program for the next mesocycle for bench press, which is centered around strength and hypertrophy. Basically, I'm giving you a free program because you might like this one. So stay tuned and let's break this down. As you just saw, I missed a 480-pound bench press PR. Didn't want to try for 475 because I've hit 475 over a handful of times, and I didn't expect to get 480. I was just trying my luck. But what I did increase was my overall conditioning for the muscles related to bench press, which was my goal from the previous 8 weeks. Now for the next 8, I'll be focused on strength and hypertrophy, which would change the way I train a little bit. So let's take a look at the previous conditioning program and then the strength and hypertrophy program, so you can get a good feel of how I program my training to help you be able to program yours. When creating a fitness program, you need to decide what the overall goal is. Is it strength, hypertrophy, both, conditioning, weight loss, or better cardiovascular endurance? Whatever the case may be, training variables such as exercises performed, intensity, volume, rest time, and frequency should all be manipulated to reflect the overall goal of your program. Each variable will be different depending on your goal. So usually for adding strength and mass, a higher intensity with a lower amount of volume, longer rest periods, and less frequency works. For conditioning, fat loss, and adding lean mass, a lower intensity with a higher amount of volume, shorter rest periods, and more frequency works. Now, I'm a powerlifter. Back in December, I competed in a powerlifting meet. I trained for maximal strength and power, so my program reflected that for a few months leading up to the meet. So my conditioning took a good hit since there wasn't a lot of volume incorporated in training. Coming out of the meet and maximal strength training, I wanted to focus on conditioning my body more for strength and hypertrophy. So from the previous 8 weeks, this is what my conditioning program looked like. Now I want you to follow me on this program, especially those of you who are looking to increase your conditioning, strength, muscle mass, and fat loss. This type of program promotes metabolic stress. Metabolic stress is a state where muscles experience low energy and a buildup of metabolites, leading to muscle swelling. Also leads to the release of hormones such as growth hormones and oxidative stress, all of which stimulate muscle adaptation or conditioning and growth. So basically, in layman's terms, high reps, low intensity, and limited rest periods. When looking at the program, you can see that most of the variables were geared towards conditioning the prime movers, the synergists, and stabilizers for bench press. Since machines isolate more than incorporate muscles and stabilizers, I opted out of any type of machine training with the exception of triceps. And if you're curious about why I don't use machines much, then check out this video with a detailed breakdown of the difference between free weights and machines. So my training intensity was around 65% for bench press, and the weight for all other accessory lifts was based off of me being able to complete the last 2 reps of the last set on each exercise. A working weight of 65% of my 1 rep max is light enough to where I can completely focus on form and conditioning, but also heavy enough to where I won't lose any maximal strength. 65% also allows me to perform a good number of reps, 12 to be exact, in order for me to achieve metabolic stress. The 4 sets for each exercise centered around bench press also allows me to do the same thing, and usually my muscles would be smoking by the time I reach the end of the 4th set. And if failure occurred before I reached the 4th set with my working weight, then I just reduced the weight. Very simple. At the same time, if I had got stronger from the week before, I also increased the weight. Rest periods were very limited, ranging from 1 to 2 minutes, and the reason for the limited rest periods is from 60 to 120 seconds. The body only recovers about 75% of the strength and energy it needs to complete another set like it just performed. Red blood cells and oxygen transport the energy muscles need to work. So limiting the time it takes for this to happen means limited energy, which leads to metabolic stress. It can take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes for the body to recover nearly 100% of its strength and energy after a set. So from the exercises, the intensity, the sets, the reps, the rest periods, every variable within this program is geared towards metabolic stress for conditioning and hypertrophy. Now let's look at what my program will look like for the next mesocycle. This type of program promotes a combination of metabolic stress with mechanical tension. Mechanical tension occurs when muscle fibers generate their force against an opposing force, or basically the weight you're moving. It's a key driver for muscle growth as it causes a temporary release of testosterone and growth hormone, promoting strength and hypertrophy gains. 5x5 training with compound exercises like bench press with 80 to 90% of your 1 rep max is an example of mechanical tension. But as I said before, this program is a combination of both metabolic stress and mechanical tension. As you can see, I changed 3 variables in this training. There's an increase in training intensity, a reduction in volume with the overall reps performed, and then an increase in the rest periods between each set. Decreasing the number of reps allows me to increase my intensity to 75% of my 1 rep max, which means training heavier. Pressing 75% of my 1 rep max for 8 reps pushes my muscles towards metabolic stress, since my muscles start to run out of strength and energy towards the last few reps. It also pushes my muscles towards mechanical tension, since 75% is a heavier load than what my muscles were accustomed to from the previous 8 weeks. While 8 reps doesn't sound like a lot, pushing 75% of your 1 rep max for 8 reps is extremely tough, especially if your body's not conditioned to it. Hence why I conditioned my body for this type of training in the previous 8 weeks. Increasing my rest periods allows my muscles to recover more energy and strength, which means I can keep pushing that heavier weight. By changing these 3 variables, I was able to create a brand new program that drives strength and hypertrophy before the muscles work. I didn't change any exercises because they work, and I wanted to improve my strength with each one, since they all contribute to bench press, aside from the biceps training. Now, one important variable that should decrease as training intensity increases, or the weight you're using increases, is the amount of volume that you're doing. Too much volume can lead to overtraining, which can lead to longer muscle recovery time or even injury. For example, if I'm doing 5x5 training for bench press for strength and power, I'm already training at 80 to 90% of my 1 rep max, just on bench press. That training alone creates high intensity mechanical tension. There would be no reason for me to add too much more volume to my training, as I risk overtraining. 2 sets of dumbbell presses, 2 sets of incline bench press, and 3 sets of straight bar triceps extensions would allow me to maintain muscle mass and prevent muscle imbalances, while allowing my muscles to recover and become stronger by the next training session. Remember, depending on what type of training you're doing, more volume is not always better. Now that you've seen 2 examples of how I write my fitness programs, let's look at how your program might look. Remember what your overall goal is, so that the variables within your program reflect your goal. And your goals may be different than mine, in that you're not looking to focus solely on conditioning for strength. Your goal may be to build muscle with a little less tax on your stabilizers. Here's an example of a beginner to intermediate level fitness program for a push day that's geared more towards hypertrophy, as it isolates the chest without the stress on your stabilizers, aside from bench press. Now, this isn't my cup of tea, but a lot of bodybuilders use programs like this for building mass. Every variable is geared towards metabolic stress. Now, I typically switch programs every 8 to 12 weeks at lower intensities, and every 8 weeks at higher intensities. Your muscles can only sustain higher training intensities for a few weeks to a few months before you have to deload or take a break, unless you're geared up out of your mind. But this type of program could go beyond 12 weeks and you'll still see some progress. Now, if you're still a little iffy when it comes to creating your own fitness program, consider joining the Strong Breath Fitness private Discord, where I already have pre-built fitness programs that I use for myself and clients. And if you didn't find a program suited for you, then I can build you one if you're part of the Discord. All you would have to do is message me within the Discord. The link to the Discord is in the video description below, and the Discord only costs $4.99 a month. You'll spend that whenever you walk into a convenience store. It's cheap. If you enjoyed this type of content, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, and to stay tuned in for upcoming videos, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Until next time, Strong Breath Fitness.